Welcome back to the One Question Leadership Podcast. I'm Glenn Caruso, head football coach at the University of St. Thomas, and so happy you tuned in. You know, quite often we get so caught up in the daily grind of work or coaching or recruiting that we don't often take time to reflect. I would encourage everybody to take just a few minutes each day to try and see the bigger picture, to stop and realize that in the end, we're going to be judged on what we choose to believe, who we choose to love, and what we decide to leave behind in the hearts and minds of not just our players, not just our coworkers, but also our children. And remember, if we're doing it right, we're coaching for life.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive leadership in college athletics. I am here at the 2025 Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, joined by Henry Abbott. Henry is the founder of TrueHoop and recently the author of a book called Ballistic, the New Science of Injury-Free Athletic Performance. Greetings, Henry. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, last we talked, 2019, it was pre-COVID.
A whole different world.
A whole different world, right?
Yeah.
You had just taken TrueHoop. You left ESPN. You were doing some basketball analysis, some of those writing and managing 60-some people, which was a new experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
And taking TrueHoop down to a subscription-based, and, of course, writing these big interweave storytelling stories where you get in depth, you know what I mean, about things. You're writing something about some of the ownerships in the NBA and how they could be tied to some dirty money. And it was a whole bunch of things that you have done, and probably still do, right? Storytelling, the last we talked. And since then, I have grown to understand that storytelling is one of the most important things you do. And whether we know it or not, even as leaders, we are always telling some kind of story with everything, right? Whether we're selling a ticket, whether we're in a press conference, whether we're making a decision about a person in a position on our staff, all those types of things. So I think that's important. The first question I have for you is, do you still run marathons and half marathons? Are you still a runner, right? Do you still put yourself through that craziness? Because that's crazy to me, right?
So I think I have like a body type or something where I just am not very comfortable not doing anything.
Okay, right.
Right? I've noticed even if I have like a Sunday with nothing planned, I just want to do stuff, right? Like I don't really want to sit on the couch all day. Like I feel weird doing that.
Yeah.
So I have done a tremendous number of difficult athletic things through the years.
That's too crazy. Okay.
The most recent thing was High Rocks. Have you heard of this?
Yeah. I'm a trainer at a gym called F45.
Oh yeah.
And they have a relationship.
Yeah. So I did High Rocks. I did one High Rocks the first one in New York last year. And I'm signed up for this year's, but I am up against it because I was born with hip dysplasia, and all of my exploits through the years had given me on an MRI like a pretty messed up back. So I'm able to do a lot of stuff. There's actually a bunch of this book, Ballistic, involves my little journey here. But right now, I did two things which combined to be stupid. One is I found like the greatest partner you could ever have. This guy, Gary, is an absolute animal. We're going to kill it together.
Okay.
But so now I have like high expectations for myself to not like Gary down. At the same time, like I'm pretty much just doing physical therapy right now. So I'm like, and it's end of May. So wish me luck.
Oh man. So you're not training because you got to work on your body first.
Currently, I'm working. It's a long story, but I'm working with a physical therapist, kind of a highly specialized physical therapist who's really trying to help me literally just move parts of my body into new positions. And she's like, can you do me a favor and just not like lift a ton of heavy weights while you're doing this and not do it a ton? Running is probably ultimately how I did all this damage. So I'm like, okay.
That's interesting.
So I'm like walking. I just unpacked my bag because I'm staying like 4 miles away from here. And like my plan this morning was just to walk here. And then my daughter was driving by and gave me a ride. But yeah, I'm trying to get exercise like every crazy way.
So, okay, let me just look at this. You plan on doing High Rocks. The physical therapist says, keep it easy for a certain amount of time, or
she's looking for
knows
certain.
You have High Rocks coming up.
She does. And I might back. I already texted Gary. I'm like, look, I might not be a good partner for you, right? I might not be able to do it. But for whatever reason, the way I told myself to handle it is like, I'm just going to get my body feeling good. And then on that day, whenever that is, I'm going to look around and decide what my high rex plan is, right? Right now, I'm like, I've gotten much better, but I'm still not back in the gym. I'm still not like High Rocks says, you're carrying like 2 55-pound kettlebells and you're lunging with 45 pounds on your back.
Doing all kind of crazy, tossing balls up to all the things.
Wall balls. Yeah. Yeah. I love all that stuff. That's fun for me. I had a great day. The day that I did High Rocks in New York, I was grinning ear to ear, in part because of all the stuff, but also, this is not where I thought this interview was going to go, but also I was part of like 20 people who were just like friends from the part of New Jersey where I live, and they were all doing it. One of them was there with her cousin who's in Hamilton.
Oh, wow.
The musical.
Wow.
And he was just like there to hang out and be supportive.
Yeah.
I love Hamilton so much. I was like, I don't give a crap about celebrities. I've met lots of times, so I just don't care.
Yeah.
This is different.
That's how you fanned out.
I totally fanned out.
Hilarious.
I was just like, I asked him a million geeky questions about what's like backstage and who's cool and whatever. And he was like, he was my best friend.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah. So that was like a great day.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the book here in a second. I want to lean into storytelling a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And, I try to highlight leadership in college athletics. And I think leadership is my mantra is that the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of, right?
Amen. 100% agree. Yeah.
So doing something like that, you got to be able to tell the story of the culture that you have built as a leader, or that you're building, or that you're maintaining as a leader. So I wonder about storytelling, as most people understand storytelling in terms of writing stories about this or telling stories about this, but also as almost like a psychology of living, right? Tell me about your thought process on storytelling in those.
I could talk for like the next 7 days in a row on this particular topic, but well, in college athletics, here's how I think about it, right? So the transfer portal is like the big story now, right? And the story in the minds of a lot of athletes, I know both my kids are in college right now, so I'm getting firsthand accounts of college athletes and how they think, right? A lot of them are like, well, the story to me of program A is I don't like it, so I'm in the transfer portal and
maybe the story over there is better, right?
Yeah, we'll see, right?
Yeah. Or my story doesn't fit into program A concept.
Yeah. And so, and NBA teams have a little bit of a similar thing, right? Where team players are contractually bound to the team. How many of them would stay if they weren't, right? If they had the college model, they could just leave. Like, would everybody leave your team? If so, I think you're not going to win anyway, right? So to me, like, I think that if you're on the other end of the spectrum, if you're running the recruiting visit and you've got these players in the transfer portal thinking about your program, right? What you're trying to do is tell a story that's authentic and stands up over time once everyone lives in their dorms and figures out how much money they're going to get, all this stuff, right? Once it's all done, like, does that story hold up? What's your story, right? And I think we are probably in a world where the future of these stories are going to be, hey, we're the place where it's okay to have a kid, or we're the place where, you can explore your religion or your whatever. Like, it might be something really not to do with sports at all, but you want to have a story that holds up to scrutiny, that takes you through some storms, right? Like, it's going to get hard. And I think that in life, it's always better to be drawn to something instead of away from something, right? And so to me, this is it. Like, you're running recruiting visits. Like, do you have a story that legitimately will not just draw someone, but keep them stuck on there, right? Yeah. And like, that to me is everyday storytelling. Right?
Yeah.
It's every day. You got to just like...
That's interesting.
Not horse crap stories. That's not what I'm talking about. I don't mean storytelling like coming up with an excuse for your little kid and your parents to catch you or something. That's a kind of storytelling. That's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about, like, sometimes you see a kid who's like, Dad, I'm much stronger than I used to be, and I'm trying to explore the limits of my potential here, right? So I'm sorry I threw the ball through the window, but I really want to see how far I could throw it. Like,
you got to give him a pass on that. Like,
it's a little better than most kids, right?
That's
You're
hilarious.
Like, it's not bad,
So what you're saying though is important. You talk about, you could be one of these college departments who are like, what you see now, and there's no knock against it, because until everything balances itself out, you have to do this. But it's like, we have more money and we can pay you more than whatever they're offering, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the story some departments are telling now, right? And that may work, because you think about coming from Inglewood like I did, and somebody offered me a couple $100,000, like, okay, I'm going to take it.
You're going to think about it.
I'm going to think about it, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, it also has to be, what's the story behind this money, right? What's the story behind, okay, if I come there, what am I going to experience? I might be artistic and want to walk around with the afro and draw pictures all day. Like, will they allow me to do that? Can I be an outside of the box thinker? Or, I'm more accounting and data than I am artistic, and I really just want to be in the box. I can play all balls out on the field, but I'm in the box kind of square. Like, are they going to let me be a nerd when that kind of thing? So what's the story? So I think that's important, is that people are really going to have to be able to tell the story of your department, of your campus, of the academics, of all those things when they get on campus. I like the way you pointed that out. One thing I worry about in college athletics now, I've always worried about, but has grown since the last time we talked, is what I call it this, and it may not mean this, but I call it athlete identity syndrome, right? It is, as athletes, we have always dealt with the separation of who I am versus what I do when we retire, right? A lot of us have never don't prepare for that separation. So when we identify ourselves as a football player and that football player aspect is gone, now we have this identity crisis. That's probably going to go on forever, right? You can help athletes start earlier and help them transition from retiring from a sport, and hopefully it works for them. But now when you include an aspect of, I'm a football player who's getting paid so many thousands of dollars to be a football player, and I'm in college, and I get out of college and I'm not playing, it seems like that athlete identity syndrome, with quotes, will probably be exponentially worse because there's so much money involved to me, because now I'm not making money and I'm separating from it when I do separate from it.
So like the earlier money sort of, it makes it more formative, your identity, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you're more entrenched into it because now you're getting paid for it. Whereas it was a scholarship before and I participated and I still had issues when I separated. Now, if I'm an athlete, I would scholarship for it, I participated, lights and glory, but I'm also getting a whole bunch of money to support my family. And as we know, most of the athletes, and I guess I'm primarily talking football and basketball here, but even other sports where are getting money, the professional may not happen. It's probably not going to happen.
Usually doesn't. Yeah.
Right. And so now you get out there and I'm not getting money. And I look at a job that's paying $75,000 or $50,000, and it's like, well, I don't want that. I was just getting paid $120,000. And so now the separation is even worse. And so I don't know. I wonder about, that's the concern I have in thinking about that.
I had not thought about that. That's an interesting point. I mean, the big picture of what's happening, right, is like we were just in a lecture where that guy, Jerry Cardinal, was talking about basically like more money is going to athletes, right? Like, that's good.
That's a good thing, yeah.
It's going to be so messy, right? It's going to take 50 years to figure it out, right? This is one of 100 problems that we're going to, but I guess I feel like, they're smart people getting this money, and a lot of them will screw it up, but they won't all screw it up, and then we can learn from the ones that don't.
They don't screw it up, and how to put a program in place to help people deal
just
with that.
Time I've been covering sports, NBA players with their money have gotten way better.
Yeah.
Like, anecdotally, I mean, it seemed like when I started covering the league, everybody had a Bentley. It seemed like, and like lots of people, there were lots of stories of bankruptcies, or like you gave power of attorney to your financial advisor, and then whoops, even like Tim Duncan or Kevin Garnett, like they had their money like stolen in huge amounts, right? I don't think that's how it goes anymore.
Right.
I'm sure there's some cases, but Antoine Walker, that was like the saddest story ever, right? It was a long story, but like I ended up going to an NBA game a few years ago and met this player, and we went to dinner. And like I've been in this scene of the loading dock where they park their cars, and it's usually sports cars and Mercedes. Yeah. We got in his Chevy, and it wasn't even like a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, just out of curiosity, like, why this? He's like, well, I have this contract with this much, and I bought this townhouse, and if I have this car, then I can live the rest of my life with my first contract. I'm like,
that's crazy,
love
right?
That.
Different than the 80s and 90s, right?
So different. It's a totally different thing, And I think that's pretty common now.
So that what you're saying, especially NBA, is NBA, I think, had realized, okay, we're part of the problem here, right? We're paying these guys, and they play, and they blow all their money, and now they're desolate, right? Yeah. So I think the NBA has put in checks and balances, and that's what college athletics has to do. Now, there are programs and things, but those programs were built on a foundation that wasn't what it is today. So they'll like you're saying, they'll probably put things in place to where these athletes, student athletes, will figure out how to not blow everything so they can live for 20 years on the money they're making in college, which sounds crazy to say. Another aspect of that athlete identity syndrome, with a lot of athletes, figure out early enough so that when they do stop competing, it's not as much as a crisis, is getting injured.
Oh, right? I see what you did there.
They get injured, junior year or sophomore year, and then they have this crisis of who am I without playing, and that helps them transition when they do continue playing, when they finally retire from playing, into understanding, who they are, and not understand who they are, core values, foundational principles that make them who they are. What's interesting today is like a LeBron James, 22 years or something in the league. I think Kareem was in the league for like 19 years. Kobe was in, he's just playing longer, right? Tom Brady, right? I think that you probably know better than I do. I think that Tom Brady, the whole thing was in the news was an identity crisis thing. I mean, yes, divorce, but I think it was like, you want me to separate from the sport, and I'm actually still good at it because I just won a Super Bowl. So now I got to leave. That probably was the hardest thing in the world to do. 40 years playing.
He's the poster child of your athlete syndrome.
Right, exactly. But that brings me to the book, Ballistic, right? The brief description you gave me, right? And I'm going to mess this up and allow you to correct me, right?
Go for it.
Is research has shown that there are a number of factors that you can identify to prevent certain injuries. And if you do these things, you can compete longer without getting the injury. And this book kind of tells the story of that. Correct me on how I just described it.
I think the best way to think about it, honestly, is heart attacks.
Okay.
So if you can go back and look, I've done this. It's really boring. So let me just give it to you in 20 seconds. But like the history of cardiology of preventing heart attacks is hilarious. There's like going back to Roman times, there's doctors who were like, they didn't know about the difference between like, they didn't know where blood comes from, for instance. There's all this kind of crazy stuff, right? And even just like 120 years ago, there were publications about like, did this person have a heart attack because he was like coveting his neighbor's wife?
But
like God struck him down, right? It's like, that's what we thought it was, right? And just an act of God, right? Then this little device, the echocardiogram, which is the thing in every hospital show with the beep, beep, beep next to the heart. Right? Okay, so that thing would show the movement of the blood flow through the heart. That was invented like around the turn of the century, and actually a Boston-based doctor became one of the big, Paul W. White became one of the like pioneering doctors. He went over on like a steamship to learn how to use this thing. And then before 1930, he'd done 20,000 echocardiograms. And he and other doctors really learned that like the crisis of the heart attack comes after 10 years of the blood flow slowing down through the arteries of the heart, right? Which means you have 10 years to intervene. And so that's what we do. That's how we treat heart attacks now, is they're seeing, that slow down, and they prescribe diet, exercise, or medicine. And heart attacks have gone down so much since they started doing this that U.S. life expectancy went up a decade, right? This was like the biggest killer, and now it's not. So this guy, Marcus Elliott, who I wrote the book about, he tore his ACL on his 17th birthday at football practice, and he was depressed for 6 months and didn't leave his room, and he was bummed about his football career being over, right?
What we just talked about,
yeah. And then he was like, okay, like I'm just going to study the human body so hard that maybe I can learn to prevent these things. Maybe I can use the heart attack approach for musculoskeletal injuries, right? Injuries that ruin sports. And he went to Harvard Medical School. He worked for the New England Patriots. He went to the U.S. Olympic Training Center. He went to Seattle Mariners. And for the last 20 years, he's had this place called P3, Peak Performance Project in Santa Barbara and Atlanta. And after trying every different tool, he studied microbiology, he's delivered babies, he's worked in physiology. But like after all these different tools, they've really hit on like the magic insight comes from force plates in the floor, 22 markers arrayed around your body, little reflective things like you're going to be in a video game, infrared cameras in the ceiling. And then they'll have like Giannis or Luka do crazy hour of explosive movements in all directions. That makes like close to 1 million data points. And then they'll just do a very big data project of what are the lessons, like what, and this has been doing this with all that set up for 10 years, thousands of elite athletes, more than 70% of the current NBA has been assessed. And basically if someone tears their ACL like Kyrie did the other day, they're going to dig in and be like, okay, like Kyrie ended with an ACL tear. What did he start with? Well, how did he move, right? And over time, they kind of build these. When you have a little database, you don't know anything. But once you have a big database, you're like, wow, there's some really powerful signs here of like what an ACL tear looks like 5 years before it happens, just like a heart before a heart attack. And so that's what they're working on, and they have like a big bunch of findings that apply to all of us, right? There's just stuff that is upstream from injuries that's in the movement data that we just could never know from an MRI. Like I'll stop monologuing here for a second. I just had another cup of coffee. But Derrick Rose, terrible story, right? Like if you did an MRI of his knee the morning that he tore his ACL, it would look perfect, right? It's the movement that caused it, right? It's not his knee. The answer is not in his knee. And actually, all of the top causes of ACL tears are in the foot and the hip. The knee just catches hell in the middle, right? So that's what they're kind of opening this door, like a new way of seeing how we move, which, is super important to college athletes because they're in this formative stage of like, who am I as a person, right? And am I going to make it as a pro? Probably not, but maybe. And like injuries are just the off-ramp for all your dreams, right? They were for Marcus. And so this is like I feel like it's the biggest story in sports. I mean, just NBA right now has, I could do the math. It's probably something like 30% of all-stars are done for the season, right? Like
crazy.
This is a wild problem that just dominates sports and no one knows what to do about it except for this guy.
So I guess the question is, as they analyze this data, would they be able to tell 2 years from now if Derrick Rose, was still playing? Would they be able to tell a Derrick Rose, don't move like this because your body is not built for you? I mean, tell me how you would apply that kind of situation.
Yeah. So it's a new field.
Okay.
And there's going to be lots of different things coming out of it, right? We're in the early days still.
Yeah.
But the way that it works right now is they frequently have like a fresh, actually, so William Morris and Endeavor clients have an exclusive deal to do their pre-draft training there. So like Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, all these guys, while I was writing the book, they're all out there doing their 7 weeks of pre-draft training. And a lot of them come in with some pain, but some of them come in feeling amazing. And they'll say, hey, look, like when you land, you have 70% of your weight in your right leg.
Oh, coming down.
And 30% in your left. Like, let's work on that, right? Once you have that kind of imbalance, this is a very basic, easy to understand, but there are a bunch of other ones. Once you have that, like, the stress on that knee
after a few years,
it's sick.
It's going to go, yeah.
The forces involved are, here's another kind of core finding of this, right? So, like, I had to learn about physics to write this book. So, like, a pro boxer's punch is about 100 newtons of force. They have an NBA player standing on an 18-inch box and stepping off and landing with 11,000 newtons of force.
Wow.
Like, human bodies in free fall have all of the biggest forces in sports.
Wow, okay.
To completely sever a human spine takes a third of that 11,000 newtons, right? So we're counting on these contraptions of our legs to like work right.
Yeah.
So basically, and you go through the assessment, young Derrick Rose or whatever, they're basically saying like, hey, do you have good landing gear? Because your body's going to be, your torso is 80% of your weight. It's going to be free falling towards the earth, and you need a good contraption.
Yeah.
And like, do you have a good contraption? And like, it's we're well designed. We have like a better than most animals' ability to like land like a cat, right? But if you happen to land on the outside of your foot or on your toes, or if a big common problem, which I have personally, is you don't accept a lot of the force of landing into your glutes and your hips. You don't bend your hips back as you land. All of these things are like
problematic,
big, dramatically increasing your risk factors. So I think, step one, if you were talking to Marcus Elliott, the book is about, he would have a lot more nuance for you. But like, to me, the big cut is like, just like don't drive drunk, put your seatbelt on. Like, these are the big safety things in driving. Like, in operating your athletic body, the big things are going to be like, get your landing gear straight, right? Like,
so they'll tell people this.
Yeah, they'll be like, your hips are too immobile, your hips aren't stable enough. There's little pointers to work on for everybody, right?
Okay, so you're preventing the wear and tear.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can't.
And the crisis.
And the crisis, right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because most of the crises are caused by the wear and tear, and then you move one way. I think was what you're saying. And you move a certain way, and all those years of wear and tear come to a head.
Yeah.
Bam, crisis. Super interesting. I wonder about, and of course I haven't read the book, right? So I wonder, does the book give me insight on ways to move, to land, to train so that I can prevent the wear and tear, thus hopefully preventing the crisis? Is that what this tells me, or
Yeah. So they're very, very focused on like making the best athletes in the world better, more robust, which means a very personalized thing, right? So I was there kind of as an advocate for you and me. It's like, well, what do you guys learn that applies to the rest of us, right? We don't all have however many thousands of dollars
That's the question,
to come here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I was at times annoying with that repeated, they call us normies, right? They're like,
sounds like on college campus, right?
Yeah. We're normies, right? But I got a ton. There's a ton. There are 26 illustrations in here. I had to get an illustrator because I learned so much that like they're describing the move you have to do. Right?
Yeah.
But just for your listeners, like I'll tell you like a basic kind of category of thought that I think could make you different, like and better with your body moving forward. So, hips are the most important joint in the body, and like in terms of like second most mobile joint, biggest forces of the body, right? So if your hips are wrong, your injury risk is high. And almost every single person they've ever assessed at P3, this includes their facility for pro athletes, which is thousands of pro athletes, and they have another facility for normies.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all the people they've ever assessed comes away with like, here's you need to work on your hips.
Okay.
Those recommendations fall into two categories. You either need to make your hips more mobile or more stable.
Okay.
You need both. If you want to play in an NBA or if you want to age gracefully, right? You need both those things. What we tend to do is people with mobile hips go to yoga class. And they're good at yoga, right? And they feel good about it. And then they need hip replacements or they have hip pain because their hips aren't stable enough, right? Whereas I'm one of these people with not very mobile hips and I go lift weights, right? And I need to go to yoga because my hips aren't mobile enough, right?
Yeah.
So their little joke is everybody should switch.
Right.
If you love yoga, you should probably lift weights. And if you love lifting weights, you should probably go to yoga.
Okay,
right?
I got it.
So you gotta know, like sitting here right now, I know which category I'm in. I'm guessing you probably know which category you're in.
I know. I've always felt like my hips are stiff, but I've never been analyzed enough to actually know if that's
You're probably right? Okay, so you can do it at home. They have a little test they told me after I annoyed them with enough questions. Like if you get in a side plank position, you know what I'm talking about? Okay, and then if you can lift your upper leg, lift your arm so your body's a big X, all 10 toes pointing forward. If you can like lock out that position to hold it, then their report is you're probably hips are stable enough.
Okay.
And then there's a move called a standing figure 4. You can look it up if you don't know it. So basically you're going to like put your, let's say, right
yoga
ankle
move, sit
on
down
your
in a
left
chair.
knee.
Yeah.
So you're standing up and then just sit down on one leg. It's a little bit of a balance thing, but if you can get your butt like back, keep your chest up, really sit down with your ankle across your knee, then your hips are mobile enough, right? So you're going to fail one of those.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Mine would be the second one.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to be leaning forward.
Yeah. People are going to, if you go to do it at P3, they're going to make it a little funny. But so now it's not so hard to work on hip mobility. There's a million yoga teachers ready to help you. There's a million exercises out there from reputable people who know how to work on this. And like, so that's like a big one that if you're basically, as you make your workout program moving forward, put hip mobility into it, you're probably going to age a lot better than if you don't.
That's interesting. And then stability, I guess there's some weight training you need to do around your hips for stability.
It's funny, there's a lot of ways to make fun of like kind of meathead weightlifters, and like there's a lot that isn't healthy about that. But if you find a gym that really teaches like the classic, barbell, dumbbell weightlifting moves where they're really watching your form and how your feet are lining up and like the squats.
Using your glutes instead of your back kind of situation.
It's like, really developing your posterior chain. Like Marcus has a story when he first moved to Santa Barbara, he would take yoga class once a week and his teacher was like, she would show off. She was like the most mobile person he'd ever seen. She needed double hip replacement at age like 52 because she just didn't have stability enough.
Okay.
Right? He's like, man, if she just came in and did some like squats with the bar across her back and did some like basic posterior chain, just hold her hips together, right? When I was going through my back hip thing, but a lot of the book was written on these crazy outdoor adventures. Marcus is always like biking up a mountain or hiking or whatever. At one point and he's literally wearing a microphone and I'm interviewing him while we're doing these crazy things. And at one point we like went across a log, across a ravine. So we're like, it was kind of scary.
Yeah.
And at that point we're wondering if I had unstable hips or not, right? But once we crossed it, he's like, yeah, I think if you had unstable hips, you probably wouldn't have been able to cross that log.
Tell me afterwards, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like what you've done here as we wrap up the conversation is taking some of the, tell me his name again? The doctor?
Marcus Elliott.
Dr. Marcus Elliott, taking some of the work that he has done and by asking questions, right, interpret it into a story that we can understand, us layman folks who don't understand the scientific aspect of things, right?
Yes.
And in terms of the story, is it are you in here and he in here? What is there a person or is it in
Yeah,
general? Tell me.
We're following his life story is way crazier than I got into here, but like it's like an adventure. He grew up in the woods, basically. It's crazy. But yeah, so it's really built around his life story. But then I didn't intend to be in the story, but it turns out that while I'm literally writing this book about the joy of movement, right? Like I had this like lumbar crisis. I was like lying on my left side in the dark, getting epidural injections and I had decided not to be a patient of P3 because I didn't want to like upset my journalistic objectivity, But Marcus was like, "Can you just like get over whatever your thing is so we can help you?
Come do it with us." Yeah.
I was like, "All right,
that's interesting."
Someone got assessed, and then next thing you know, I'm doing high rocks. I was like, that's
part of the story. That, as you say, that reminds me of the book the guy wrote about the memory competitions and the memory palace, where he went to just write about what they do and all of a sudden became a competitor. That actually sounds like just
some potent stuff.
Yeah. That's super interesting. Well, this has been a great conversation. I'll ask one more question, then we wrap. A lot of my audience work in college athletics, and they have their sports performance and athletic performance folks who have trainers, psychologists, people who work in the weight room and strength and conditioning, movements and science tied to all that. I imagine something like this could probably help them too, which is part of the reason I think he started the research anyway, right?
Yeah, so this is the audience that I'm literally I think a lot about how to reach them. I most want them to read this because it's real for them. Right? I think that the worry with any miracle cure medical book is some quack is made up a bunch of corny evidence to sell a product. Yeah. Right? For starters, P3 doesn't have a product. The only thing you can't go there, right? If they only accept professional athletes, right? And they don't have they literally don't have the only thing they can sell you is making you better. Yeah. Right? And so if they had some juice or whatever, it'd be a different story. But they're not selling you anything. Right. They don't even have equipment, nothing. Right. Mm-hmm. But more to the point, I'm aware that most new health products don't work. And the people who feel a bunch of that listen to this podcast. Right? Yeah, right. It's we got this new spray or this new kinesiology tape or whatever, right? There's all these things, right? So to me, I'm if these people, and I know they're skeptical, right? They go, you got a new approach? I love that. Yeah. I'm I want so badly for those people. I know a woman named Kristen at Boston College. She has this job, right? And I've seen her be an absolute wizard with all kinds of different athletes facing all kinds of different things, right? I've never met Kristen, but I've seen her. She's a friend of a friend. If Kristen or any other person like Kristen reads this book and is damn, this is helpful. Right. This is interesting. Now we're getting somewhere. Now you're right? Somewhere, that's a difficult hurdle to cross. It's hard to crack that. I want to cross. I thought about them when I was writing this book, and I'm I want this to be useful to them. And then because they're thought leaders, and it leads out to the people we're most worried about with athletes, right? That's where he has to get to really get to the athletes, right? So yeah, I hope that they hear this right now and think probably not, I'm probably not going to change my practices based on this interview with Henry Abbott, but I'm just I would read the book and then let's talk, right? If I screwed something up, maybe I did. I don't know. I tried not to, but I really think that in general, the thing that I would bet the farm on is that just like in heart disease, we're going to move away from an MRI being the predominant input tool for making these health decisions and switch to movement data. That's coming. That's so much better. That set of insights is just like the echocardiogram and heart. It's a way better thing. Better assessment on where you are. That's the future. It's a little trickier. The job's going to be harder. This movement data is, when I said 1 million data points, do you want to sift through them? I don't. I don't know how to do that, right? All right. But that's where the good data, that's where the good stuff is, right? Yeah. I think this is the future of sports injuries is right in there. Yeah, well, Henry, this has been an excellent conversation. The book is Ballistic, The New Science of Injury-Free Athletic Performance by Henry Abbott. Now, is the book available on Amazon, or tell me about how somebody can get a copy of this book? Yeah, so it is available to pre-order everywhere. This feels kind of big time. I have an author website now. It's henryabbott.com. Abbott, and that has a little thing. If you want to order from your local bookshop, you can do that there. It has 6 or 7 different ways to order it. Yep. Comes out May 6th. Okay. This is the first weekend we're doing any media around the books, and this is literally the first interview. Oh, so okay. I feel honored, right? Yeah, no, I'm honored. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Okay, actually, that was Henry Abbott. Henry is the author of Ballistic, The New Science of Injury-Free Athletic Performance, and of course, I am Ty Brown.
with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.